who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have the council member roll call, please?
Mr. Powell?
Here.
Mr. Gertz?
Here.
Mr. Lynn?
Here.
Mr. Albrecht?
Here.
Mr. Lindemann?
Here.
Mr. Fischescher?
Here.
Mrs. Edichico? Here.
Unless there's any objections, the minutes for the meeting on July 6th, the regular meeting, are approved as distributed. Those minutes are approved. Unless there's any objection, the minutes for the July 13th meeting, which was a special meeting for the appropriations for 2022, are approved as distributed. Those minutes are approved. Anyone in the audience wishing to address council, please step up to the microphone, state your name and your address, and you can queue up if you want, if there's more than one. So.
Hi, I'm Brian Collins, 145 Eagle View Way. First thing I want to do tonight is define what a strong mayor is. That's the type of government we have here. And what that allows the mayor to appoint people to different positions, including the safety service director. This person can have absolutely no experience. He can appoint whoever he wants to. Council doesn't have to approve it. No one has to approve it. He can appoint whoever he wants. So I think it's important that going forward, when I mention administration, I'm talking about the mayor and the safety service director. You got an ordinance coming up about tenants having to be registered. I think it's a good idea. I don't know if the honest people would do the paperwork. I don't think the dishonest people will, so I'm not sure how it'll work out. Mr. Powell, you mentioned that we should make an easy process by having a fillable form. That's still going to cost the city thousands of dollars to do. You're going to have to make sure that it's protected. You're going to have to store it. You're going to have an IT person come up with it. So there's still going to be a lot of cost involved in something like this, which again, if it's worth it to the city, I have no problem with that. Here's the problem I'm going to have. We don't have an administration that's going to enforce it. I'm going to go through several things where the administration doesn't enforce what's currently on the books. So just by adding more things doesn't mean it's going to be enforced. The mayor mentioned several times, no fees, no fees, no fees for this. Well, of course not. The mayor and his family own several rental properties in the city of Reading. Why would they want to have fees? So I think it's pretty sad that our mayor even involved in that process making. One of the examples is in 2016, you members as council passed an increase in all the building fees. Guess what? As of today on our website, which is brand new in 2019, they are incorrect. I called and spoke to a very nice lady named Barb on 7/14. And I asked her, hey, I need to get a variance. What will that cost me? She advised me $150. The correct answer is $250 based on everything you guys passed in 2016. How many thousands of dollars of us residents have lost because this administration hasn't been able to do a simple thing like that to enforce what fees that you guys have come up with? It's just ridiculous. Another thing that just recently happened. The city of Reading does very good at recycling. And when we recycle, we keep track of that when we get tonnage. And what we can do is we can go to the Hamilton County Recycling and Solid Waste. We submit a form, and when we submit that form, we get money back for our efforts. Well, guess what? Last year, I think we got around $3,200. This year, we're getting $0. And you want to know why? Because this administration had 2 months to fill out that form, 2 or 3 months. And guess what? It didn't get done, and now the city is getting no money for our efforts. Just another example of what this administration has screwed up in the city. Let's talk about the school and those polls. Whether right or wrong, I don't care. The city administration was responsible to make sure that the general contractor followed the rules of the PDD. They didn't, so in the end, council had to spend money to sue the school. The school had to hire an attorney, money out of all our pockets. And then in the end, they came together, and there's $50,000 out of our pocket, when if it would have been done during the construction phase, it had probably been a third less. The mayor talks about how Patrick doesn't have any time for this. He's too busy taking water payments and answering the phone. Well, guess what? Patrick, in 2017, his salary was $90,585. That's a little ridiculous when we have a person making over $90,000 answering the phone and taking water payments. This is from the Gov Salaries website. By the way, he's also, in 2017, the 4th highest paid safety service director in the state of Ohio. There's a gentleman above him who's on the safety service director for the city of Elyria. He makes $400 more than Patrick. However, he's over a city of 50,000 people. So Patrick is getting paid extremely well to do his job, which he's not doing. And of course, we'll have the mayor make tons of excuses for him because he appointed him there. So it's amazing to me that council sits back. A lot of you know some of this, maybe you don't. Oh, by the way, Patrick's looking for jobs. He recently applied for the city manager position in the city of Middletown, according to the Middletown Journal. He didn't get it, but he is applying for other jobs, which is good for him. If he wants to further his career, no one should stop that. However, how engaged is a person when he's looking for other jobs and he's running our city? We've come forward to you tonight, council, to see what you can do. You guys know some of this has been going on. We need it to stop. Money is being lost by the tens of thousands because this administration cannot do what he was elected for or what Patrick Ross gets paid to do. And then we as citizens are the ones that are paying. Because guess what? Our taxes will go up or other things will go up because we are not collecting what's due to our city. And it has to stop. I look to you guys for guidance to figure out what we need to do. If I had a wish list, the mayor would resign because he is not upholding his oath by watching over the best interest of this city. Now he's going to go on and on how he is, but I just gave you 4 examples right there how he is not. Patrick Ross should probably be demoted to something that he's more suited to do because I don't believe time management has anything to do with what his job is, and he's not good at it, organizational skills, or even the knowledge to handle that position. So I'm asking you tonight, council, stick up for us as citizens and find out what we can do to try to help our administration, which is falling horribly on its face, do better for us and our city residents here at Reading. I appreciate your time.
Mr. Collins, I had a question. Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Where did you get this information? Because I think Mr. Lindeman, about this recycling, because you brought this up, didn't you, Don?
I have.
Is
Yeah,
that
in 2016, we didn't file a report in time. We didn't get the $3,200 or whatever it was. And again, in this past year, it wasn't filed in time, so we didn't get the money for that. We could have used it. It's not a lot of money, please.
What report was this?
Recycling, the diversion rate from the waste collection.
I'll
The
find
diversion rate. And I think it's been taken care of because I think now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Seth has volunteered to take that responsibility, which I suggested some time ago that maybe Patrick is in too many places and he needs to delegate some of his authority to other people. I believe Seth, he fills out the paperwork anyway over at the, for recycled chips and, you know, that sort of thing. He fills out the paperwork anyway, so he said I believe, if I'm wrong, tell me, but I believe he said that he would go ahead and fill the paperwork out in the future so that this sort of thing doesn't happen again.
So that's 2 times it's happened where we've missed out on money because the paperwork wasn't filled out. Who is ultimately responsible for it? The Safety Service Director.
Can I respond to just a few things?
you can go ahead.
You know, first off, Mr. Collins, we always appreciate your remarks. I don't know where he got his statistics at all.
I have any record you would need.
Will you get them to us? Because some of them are wrong.
Yes, sir. I guarantee it's not.
I guarantee it is. Our safety service director is one of the lowest paid in Hamilton County, much less in the state. You know, I think there were 47 city managers. Pat was the 3rd lowest paid last we checked. So where he got this, he's grossly overpaid. 3rd lowest, I think Laughlin had a part-time and another community had a part-time city manager. The only 2 that made less than our city manager here. In 5 years, Patrick Ross graduated from St. X High School with honors, while he was an all-state football player. He got a full 5-year ride to Boston College University, a D1 college, a very well-respected academic college. He graduated in 5 years with his master's degree in public administration, just what you would want for a safety service director. His degree was in finance after 4 years. He does an outstanding job. We apologize if we lost $3,200 2 years in this. This is the first I've heard about this. You know, I want to remind y'all we'll spend close to $2 million in grant dollars this year, $2 million in grant dollars, due to the efforts of Patrick Ross and others as well. Now, you know, when he says he's answering the phone sometimes, you know, it doesn't mean he isn't doing his safety service director's responsibilities. When I became mayor in 2004, and I'll go back to the year 2003, we had a full-time park and recreation director, a full-time city clerk, and a full-time payroll clerk on our side of the office area out there. 3 full-time people. All were costing the city about $60,000 a year at that time. When I became mayor, January 1st of 2004, a very experienced auditor, Doug Sands, who had predicted that we would spend $800,000 more than we brought in 2003. He correctly predicted that, as he did in 2002, predicted in 2004 we would overspend by $1.1 million in a $6.5 million general fund budget. Now, the only reason we made it through 2002 and 2003, spending $800,000 more than what we brought in, because we are required by law to carry a balanced budget and live within our means, is we had a one-time inheritance of electric bond money. One-time inheritance of it. We got close to $4 million. By the time I walked in the door, there was $600,000 left, and we're predicted to go $1.1 million in debt in 1 year. Now, as a mayor, I can't come in and rip up union contracts. 90% of our money goes to the salaries of police officers, fire EMS people, public works people, and it should. It's just like a school with teachers. It's what we do. Schools spend their monies on teachers. We did ours, you know, on our union people. So what happened? I take the city clerk, big help to the safety service director and mayor, cost $60,000 for the city in 2003, 15 in 2004. It went from full-time to part-time. We had a full-time Parks and Rec director, cost the city $60,000 in 2003, and years before. Cost the city $15,000 in 2004. And a payroll clerk, we lost part-time to another department. You know, another loss to us. Our safety service director should have come in at a salary of $70,000, took the job at $55,000. We made every cut we could. Every time a service department person retired, we didn't rehire because, again, we have to balance a budget. We were lucky to sell several acres of unusable land in the floodplain next to the Mill Creek to the Metropolitan Sewer District for $127,000. They built 3 plants with that property, 3 plants here in Reading, to take 51 million gallons of raw sewage out of the Mill Creek each year. But bottom line, we have grown and grown in the amounts of grants, record grants for this community. 55, 60 road projects in the years I've been mayor. Patrick Ross has done an incredible job at an incredible price, and it's some days when we have no other clerk, because the full-time clerk went to part-time, full-time park and recreation director went to part-time, it's either him sit at that desk or we have no one. We'd be shutting down. So he does that above and beyond his safety service director responsibilities and duties. For 6, 7 years, not only is he the lowest full-time paid safety service director in Hamilton County, he's the only one that doesn't have a secretary. Been asking for years for council to get him one. Now, in their defense, in a lot of years, we simply didn't have the money. But you can't keep beating up on somebody without attempting to get him help. He does an outstanding job. So again, sorry if we lost $6,400 in diversion rate dollars. You know, he's spending his time and getting us millions upon millions of dollars in grants. Payroll in this community in the last 10 years went up, I believe, $75, $80 million a year. That's $1.6 million in extra earnings tax revenue. Now, you know, Pat's going to take all the blame for everything. I think he deserves that much credit for those things. He's a big part of it. He wears many hats here. He does many things here and gets very little thanks for it, and he doesn't need it. Played 3 years in the NFL. He's used to getting beat up. But on the other hand, you know, some of the criticisms, as you heard tonight, are very inappropriate, not even accurate, and I'm sorry, he has to go through it. You know, we should thank God we have him. If you ever think of what type of job he's doing, you know, always remember, we are open in this building every second of every minute of every day. Every second of every minute of every day. Go ask our police chief, fire chief, or chief of public works what they think of him. Just the opposite of what Mr. Collins just said. They would give him, and in fact, I think he's close to $30,000 a year below the county average. That we get from the center of local government. They would give him his raise plus some. Those are the people he works with all day, every day. So, sorry about the cheap shots again to our safety service director, who we ought to thank God that we have. Let me go down. I don't get to vote on these rental property things. I don't get to vote. Council gets to vote on them. My sister owns rental property. My wife, Terry, and I own 3. This vote has nothing to do with us, and honestly wouldn't cost us a dime. You know, what we want is the names of property owners so we can get property improvements done in a timely manner. We struggle sometimes finding the property owner's name that is responsible for making sure his property is kept in an orderly manner. Sometimes we get calls here with yards full of garbage, trucks parked in yards, grass 18 inches tall to where they say you lose small animals in them, and we have a hard time finding the property owner. That, and Katie can correct me if I'm wrong, is the motivation behind this, nothing else. You know, I am a small, limited government person, and I'm going to feel the same way about this one as I feel about exterior property maintenance. When I became mayor in the years before, we were writing maybe 20 letters a month, sometimes 15 and 10, to deal with exterior property maintenance infractions. Darrell Courtney come in and started writing 60 a month. Ricky Martin come in and started writing over 100 a month. But we're determined we didn't want to fine anyone, no one. We would rather, instead of fining somebody and taking your $100 or $200, to have you put your money into your property and fix it up. One year, Ricky Martin was over 1,300 letters and brought 7 people to court, all of 7. We don't want to bring you to court. He will work with you left and right. He knocks on your door and there's ailing senior citizens, he'll try to find you help. He ain't gonna find you and take you to court. He's gone out of his way. 25 years a police officer here. And the first thing I told him, we want to have a Christian exterior property maintenance. And we went from less than 20 letters a month to over 100 letters a month with a part-time exterior property maintenance person whose position was also cut $12,000 a year starting in 2004. So there you have some of those things. Building department for years has needed help. You know, that's been gone over time and time and time again here. Dan Brooks spends 8 hours with us a week. He came in here 2-3 years ago and said, of his 8 hours here, 2 to 3 hours are doing clerical work, filing papers, answering the phone. He said we could hire somebody, pay him $12, $15 an hour, you know, a high school age student, and give him 3 more hours to deal with the professional things here. That was asked for in December of 2017. Nothing. Now, again, council has the reasons. I'm not going to follow them. I was on council. I know decisions are tough to make. What other? The school telephone poles. I'm going to add on the school telephone poles, the schools appealed that decision. Once they appealed it and the city and the schools started suing each other, that was the end of the mayor and safety service director's response to that. It was in the law director's hands, in the lawyer's hands. When things get into court, the mayor can't overrule a judge. It was in the courts. One was suing the other. We were out of it. It's being taken care of. You know, honestly, I don't feel it ever should have happened. I don't see what the big deal was with them being there myself. I disagree with the 50,000 being spent myself. But once they appealed that, and we're going through a legal process, they have the ability to legally go through what they went through. Mayor can't decide to tell the courts to back off. So anyway, I think that's pretty well covered.
Isn't ours only half of that 50,000?
And ours is only half of that. The school says the other half, yes. So sorry about the lengthy report there. I'd like to defend incredible people here at City Hall when people hit them below the belt. So.
Yeah, I'd like to comment myself
Okay,
now.
go ahead, Mr. Gertz.
You know, Mr. Mayor, I realize that I've served in that capacity. I've been the safety service director. I've been the treasurer. I worked in many of those capacities. You don't need council's action to hire somebody. You don't need council. You can initiate legislation if you want to change the building department, if you have the study. You can put legislation on the floor. It's not council. And by the way, we're not a charter community. I wish you would quit calling Mr. Ross a city manager. He is not a city manager. And the reason, one of the reasons is because a city manager under a charter community, and you should know this, having served mayor for 18 years, should realize that when a city manager is hired, the council hires the city manager. And what Mr. Collins is pointing out is absolutely correct. The safety service director under our form of government is purely under the auspices of the mayor, and granted, whatever your choices are, which you how to want to approach it, is wonderful. That's your choice. You can do as you see fit in that position. The council has no control over directing or telling or anything to the city, to the service director, but a city manager, they would be under control of the council, because that's the form of government charters communities are. So we got to quit calling him a city manager. He's not a city manager. And most city managers, because they're in larger, bigger communities, tend to make more money. So I don't want to have a reference to a city manager when we have a safety service director. And I don't know where Mr. Collins got his information, but I don't look to see that our safety service director is underpaid, to be frank with you. You talked about a lot of grants, and I'd like to refresh your memory a little bit, and maybe you can go back and consider the facts. The reason we have these grants, as you're well aware, is when we considered the increase in the earnings tax that was put before the floor to seek initial 0.5% of earnings tax increase, it was council members who pushed to have 1/5 of those funds to be specifically used for road projects. And we learned at that point in time, and prior to that, that if you want to get projects for road improvements, you have to be able to pony up some money. By taking 1/5 of this new revenue, we now have almost $1 million. Now we're paying back a lot of debt, but there wouldn't be the ability to get these grants had council not taken the initiative to see to it that we put 1/5 of new earnings tax money go specifically for road projects. And you're right, there are a lot of road projects, and we are getting, when we pony up, you got a $2 million project on Thurn Ridge Drive. When you get a $2 million project on Thurn Ridge Drive, $1 million, you tell them you're going to pony up $1 million, and then they give you, what is beautiful, no interest loan for 20 years. They see that the city of Reading is dedicated to improving our roads, and then they ponied up the other $1 million. So it was the action of the legislative branch that really provided the ability for us to go out and seek and get monies for road projects. So, you know, to give the impression that this has all been done due to the efforts of the safety service director, I think is unfair in the way we're depicting council, that we're a do-nothing group of some sort. Your last council meeting, you referred that 5 of the reports, I guess, were given to them through the administration. It's as though the council members, I don't know who they are, I don't get them, but I do my own. But they are in a position where they couldn't get along if they weren't given advice or consent or approval to getting the administration to direct them how to go forward and giving a council report, which I think is unfair. Getting a person to work, there are probably, I believe, 17 current employees in the service department. Now, today, I think we have some very talented people in the service department. If we have such shortage, you don't need council to hire a secretary. You can, matter of fact, You can hire some part-time people on your own. The enabling legislation is in place. We've already passed those ordinances. You don't need us to direct you to do this or do that, or our authority. We've already established it. It exists. Or you can use one of the 17 people in the service department. I think there's some competent people there. Bring them to the office. I'm not in the administration. It's how you want to operate. But to chastise the council that we're not providing you or him with secretarial help, I think is unfair as well, because you have people you could use. Or you can put legislation on the floor yourself to achieve employment of additional people if you think that's what's got to be done, and then council consider it. You know, it is aggravating to me that we are not looking at this from the perspective of, and I too want to see administration and council get along. We used to get along quite well, but you know, it's interesting to talk about this whole thing ended up in court, and there was an appeal by the school that went to the Planning Commission. Well, you and the service director, prior to all this coming down with the PDD, were very aggressive. At one time, I recall, I think Mr. Mounts was here, I may be misquoting him, and he was told that they were not even going to give the school a certificate of occupancy until they put these wires in the place that they agreed to put them, and that was to be installed in conduit under the ground and according to their contract. Well, then they appealed to the Planning Commission, of which you and Mr. Ross are the two principal members, and Katie's brother, Andy Bronner, is now on there, and he's running against me for office. He voted with the two of you to grant the variance, if you remember. So that threw a wrench in the works for us to have to deal with this whole issue. Had the Planning Commission said, no, you already agreed to do this under your PDD, and we already told you months before, maybe years before, that this is what's supposed to happen. It would, I don't know that it would ever gotten to the point of being involved with litigation. And, you know, I didn't vote to pony up $25,000 of city's funds, especially when it's my opinion that this is a function that the school should be doing. And again, to Mr. Ashbrook, who's sitting in the audience effort, the school in their, I don't remember the total, what, $52 million or something they got from $7.5 million levy that we all voted in, but they have the capacity and the funds to have finished this project correctly. Now, Mr. LaFata, when you go back, they paid him $1,000 a month to be a project manager. I think he got something like $40,000 he made. Well, not a year, he got $1,000 extra a month. Yeah. But you're right, so it added up to $40,000 before he retired, additional funds to be the project manager. Now, you know, I've been practicing law going on 50 years. I could not be a project manager or something like that. I certainly don't think, and I have great respect for Chuck LaFata. He was a ranger in the armed forces, and I think that's very admirable, and I have a lot of credit I'd like to give to him. But at the same time, I don't know why they decided to do that, and then they put in quote-unquote temporary installation, which wasn't temporary. And Mr. Mounts told them immediately they're putting permanent installation in. You know, all I get is these criticisms that I'm causing troubles up here, but, you know, it gets frustrating sometimes when you're sitting in this seat and you're given the impression that the council is lackadaisical, we're passive, we don't do our job, we don't provide people to work in the service director's office, or most recently, you know, we don't go out and get somebody to work in the parks. The legislation exists. You've got the ability to do with it, but you choose. Council has done its job. There isn't anything additional that we need to do. And it is a matter of us trying to say, you know, let's be candid about the problems. You know, if you got to lay it out, you got to lay it out. It's just like tonight, I'm thinking many of these people are here tonight. I hope they are. I don't know. But even on this legislation we have before tonight, it's the last vote is going to be on this. It goes into effect December the 1st. I had recommended that we would have more open discussion and public hearings. And yeah, it's been on Zoom a couple of times, but I took the effort. I don't know how many of you, my niece called, but many of you, I think, hopefully are here because you are people who own rental properties, and this is the first time you heard about it. I'm told. I don't know if that's completely accurate. I hope that it is correct, that you now know about it because of the communication that's been made. And I think we need to have we're cutting back meetings now. We don't have any second and fourth Tuesdays, so you don't have the opportunity to have the public hearings that we used to have on a regular basis. So that's going to be limited. By the way, on the fourth Tuesday of the month, I'm going to have the Second Ward Advisory Committee here, so anybody wants to come at 7:30 and argue with me, and Mr. Shelton, maybe he'd like to come down and argue with me about how we're going to pay for the things I put out there this past week. Rather interesting. I certainly got a lot of waves on that thing, didn't I, Mr. Albright? People getting upset, but I'm prepared to deal with it. I'm a big boy also. I didn't get a full ride to Boston College, but I got a full ride to Old Madonna College playing basketball, so I know what it's like to not have to sign a check.
Mr.
Anyway, I'd like to go forward and deal with what we have to do tonight, but I think it's appropriate that the public understand our approach as council and a legislative branch, and not to be chastised so often for our inaction when no action is really necessary from us.
Anyone else? Next person who would like to speak, state your name and your address, please.
My name is Tim Schmidt. My address, 12215 Pickwick Place, Sharonville. I am not a resident of Reading. I am a member of PFT Enterprises, LLC. We do own property, rental property in Reading. I don't know why this has to be done. I have received phone calls from Mr. Martin, Ricky Martin, telling me, it's been a while, but telling me that the grass or the outside of a particular piece of property, grass is too high. Within 24 hours, that grass is taken care of, it's cut. Anytime, any other time, we receive a call, I receive a call, whatever. It's taken care of immediately. If a water bill is late, they know how to get me. I think everybody in that office over there knows my phone number and knows how to get me. I don't know why we have to add this extra registration, and I think the way it's being done is under the carpet. Notice if this was going through, a notice should have been sent to all property owners, rental property owners, so that they could come and voice their opinion and know that this was going on. I don't see any point in it. Who do we register to? The tax department, they know my name. The waterworks, they know my name. Apparently somebody in the, I don't know if that's the building department where Rick Martin works or whatever, they know my name and phone number. I will say I've never paid my water bill to Patrick Ross. I paid it to some of the ladies in the office, but it basically never been to Patrick Ross. Anyway, that's totally different. But anyway, I just don't think that this is, why it needs to be done. I don't know.
You want me to answer?
Well,
let me say one more thing. I think this is putting extra burden on the property owner, extra restrictions, and I just don't think it's right.
go ahead, Mike.
Tim, it was brought to my administrative team, over and over from Ricky Martin, from Patrick Ross, from Todd Owens, that certain properties, we have a very difficult time finding the owners to get them to clean up the incredible messes their properties become. They're vacant landlords, they don't want to take care of anything, and we have a hard time, and sometimes it takes us months to track people down and get things done. That is the only reason.
I would think the law director would be able to go to the county records and find out who the owners are.
Well, we already looked into that, and found out that their records were very incomplete and that ours weren't as complete as they needed to be to help us. So Tim, again, you know, I'm a small government person. This is the last thing I want. I was adamantly opposed to it until, again, I was told by our safety service director, who is our equivalent of a city manager, so sorry about the terminology conflict there, and our fire chief who gets involved with these things, that we could find the blatantly disrespectful people, you know, who trash our city up. So sorry that the innocent get penalized with the bad, but you know, you're already required to provide it to the tax department. They can't share it with us. And so we have to gather our own names, again, simply to be able to address blatant issues that need to be addressed in a timely manner.
I would think the water department would know all the property owners, because if the bill's late, they go after the property owner to collect the bill.
Sometimes water bills do go in renters' names.
Well, I know, but in the long run, it's in the renter's name. But if the renter does not pay the bill, the property owner gets called or gets notified. I've been notified about that already.
And from
I'm taking care of it.
And from time to time, it takes us a long time to find them.
Well,
And that's what we're trying to cut down on, Tim. Again, for the people who don't take care of their properties.
I meant to say when I started, after I gave my name and address, I meant to say that PFT Enterprises LLC, that property that we own in Reading is 8633 Reading Road, 8643 Reading Road, 424 Jefferson Avenue, and 426 Jefferson Avenue. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim.
Mr. Lindeman.
I agree with him. I think that you're going to have the 2 or 3 months to track these people down after this ordinance is passed, if it's passed, as you do right now. So the majority of the people like Mr. Schmidt that follow the rules and they pay the bills and they cut the grass and you are able to get a hold of them. I think you had, it was mentioned about 80 pages of apartment buildings, rental properties that we already have. I just think that that by passing this and demanding that people register, those people are not going to do it anyway. I think anyway, just don't think they're going to do it.
Mr. Albrink.
How much additional information is going to be required if we pass this ordinance over and above what the Treasurer's office has, to which we don't have access? Is there
Nothing extra, to my knowledge.
Do they keep track of who's actually living there?
We're gonna, go ahead.
Sorry, Bo. Actually, I'm going to strike that from the ordinance tonight to list the tenants. So really all we need is the owner's name and contact information. Because of issues that Bo has talked about, there was just a property on Gall Terrace, I think we talked about it at our last meeting, where months and months and months, actually over a year, I can say, because I know the couple that live next door and dealt with it personally, of this house, just complete disrepair. I can't even name everything that was wrong with it, but Patrick was involved in trying to track down the owners, the hoops that we have to jump through. Same issue with our fire chief, can tell you about properties that he's dealt with where you could go to contact an owner because of something's happening at that residence, and it's a shell company. And then you finally go through all the hoops you have to go through to get a hold of somebody, and you find out it's another shell company within another shell company, or you get a phone number and it doesn't work, it doesn't go anywhere, it's no good. That's what we're trying to eliminate here. That's it. Just so in instances like that, we have a direct contact so that we can get a hold of someone and say, hey, this is happening, this is what's wrong with the property, the grass is up to the knees, the gutter's falling off, something like that. That's really all it is. It's nothing beyond that. It's nothing that's going to be shared out on the public or anything like that. And again, I'm striking the need to list the tenants' names. It's just the owner of the property and their contact information.
That'll help me a little bit, because I had some qualms about that. The other thing is, and I mentioned this before, is that there's no fee for this. The problem is, we've been talking about not having enough people to do all the work, and yet we're going to put more work on them and not generate any money to pay for either extra people or whatever. So I'm a little bit concerned with that, and I like to think of myself as being conservative too, Mayor, but at the same time, bills need to be paid, people need to be paid so that the work can get done.
Well, Dennis, the response from Todd and Patrick would be, is we're going to spend less time once this is in effect, so it will save us time.
Right.
Because again, after having to go through, Ricky Martin, it takes days sometimes. Hopefully now it'll be down to minutes. He'll be able to look it up, get it to the proper
Is this all going to be computerized?
Yes, that's eventually in the works. Once this passes, that's the next step, is creating a form, or somewhat of a form. I already kind of have one. I need to rework it with removing the tenant's name off of it, and then Patrick will send that to the company that maintains the website. That's all it is, through the website. And then if we need something in the list, they can go in there, and Patrick or Rick Martin, somebody can just go and search for a name.
The company that's maintaining it, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Our website developer, the company that,
What's the name of the
I
company?
can't think of the company that does
Company
the
that
city's
does our website,
Right,
Webmaster.
yes.
and we pay them. Are we going to pay them more?
Wouldn't imagine so.
I think it's all part of the contract.
Right. It would just be them adding another section to our website. So I don't see that being an extreme cost. And like Bo said, what we spend in manpower is hunting down owners of properties. This will eventually save us money. That and the properties where our service department's cutting the grass because we can't get a hold of anyone and the home is abandoned and sitting there, and instead of just letting the grass grow waist high, we just send our service department to cut it. And so there's more manpower and hours and money spent on the city's end.
Mr. Gertz.
Thank you, Mr. President. What we're doing is treating the symptoms. We're not dealing with the illness. And the same people who are sitting here are going to follow the law, and the same people who are not following law are not going to follow the law. And it aggravates me when they say they can't find somebody because there's some mysterious company somewhere. Now, maybe they have or haven't talked to the law director. I have great respect for the law director. I helped bring him here and campaigned with him over many years. But you cannot do business in Ohio as a company unless you establish a statutory agent. Now, what a statutory agent is, a human person that registers with the Secretary of State. And the reason you have to have a human person is because obviously a corporation or a trust or some other entity is an artificial person. And yes, they can be hard to find. So you say, well, we can't find them because they don't have a statutory agent. Well, ultimately, we'll find them, and we can expel them from the state of Ohio from doing business. And I bet $1 to a dime they're going to get a statutory agent then, and that's the person you serve and you bring in. I'm not directly involved with how they're going about it. I think that the building department, again, I keep bringing up Bob Ashbrook, but pushed for a reevaluation of the whole building department. The mayor talked about improving the building department. We'll put some legislation on the floor, get a study done, find out what we have to do to change and upgrade and improve the building department. I mean, if we have to turn the whole thing over to the Hamilton County Building Department, which I'm not necessarily in favor of, then so be it. You know, we just got $90,000 in building fees from the school when they built the new school. So it is somewhat, I guess, if we have enough building going on, a profitable part of the operation. But to say that you can't find people, as was just mentioned, there's 80 pages here of people that I was able to get. And I have the greatest admiration for Chief Owens, don't get me wrong. He's taken more aggressive steps in trying to enforce the building codes in the sense of condemnation. We got a piece of real estate on Hunt Road that's been condemned for about 2 or 3 years, and it's still, I'm waiting for it to fall over on somebody. I mean, it's a matter of taking, I know they say I talk about go back too far. I was a magistrate in Laughlin for about 15 years, and I had to go to seminars. And there are places in Ohio that have courts that are designed strictly to deal with enforcement of building codes. Now, I don't know where, when, or how we get this started in Hamilton County, or we develop more aggressively in our own mayor's court system. We were just talking about with Justin here about Pristine. The real person that got Pristine, if anybody remember Pristine, some of you are probably too young to remember it. It was a site over here that was a terrible site. They brought in chemicals and so forth. It really came down to Chief Holmeyer. You remember that, Mr. Albrecht? How did Chief Holmeyer have anything to do with cleaning up Pristine? He was the fire chief. He went over there and started citing them for fire violations. And we brought him into mayor's court. And little by little, what was his name? Kidman, remember him?
Kinman.
Yeah, he was a professor, of all people, at University on environmental studies. He was the president of Pristine, and the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency gave him a license. But it was only through our mayor's court, Chief Holmeyer, and aggressive steps that was taken to get rid of Pristine. And federal government got in, and unfortunately they wiped out our water plant too, but that's another story. But it frustrates me when we say you can't, because you can't find certain individuals or certain companies that should have statutory agents. If they don't, then they should have, and they should be put out of business and kicked out of Ohio. Or, you know, you don't punish everybody else and create another level of bureaucracy. We can't. I don't want anybody getting into anybody's records with the treasurer's office. You know, he ain't going to give us any records because he does an excellent job, and we're not entitled to him. And now you're going to have another level of bureaucracy. Now I hear tonight for the first time we're finally going to take out, I guess, reporting 18-year-olds. Is that what you're telling me? Is going to?
Yes.
I don't even know why do we have any right anyway to know about 18-year-olds? I told you that in our committee meeting. That's one of the reasons I was against it. Let me finish. I was against it because we don't have any business to know who's living in those houses. That's up to the landlord and the tenant, and it's private. Now, 16-year-olds under our ordinance might be making some money. That's totally confidential because that goes to the treasurer's office, and they may be making some money. I don't know any 16-year-olds. I don't need to know. I'm not entitled to know. But to sit here and talk about the things that we need to do, we don't need another level of legislation. We need to enforce the laws we have, and we need to get, if we need, and we do, a better evaluation of the building department. Let's do that. Or the least we should do, this is the first time we've had an opportunity for people to really come up and speak about this. Kick it off for another month. Let more people talk about it. Let them understand it better. Let them read it. You know, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I've been wrong many times. But I'm not going to roll over. And I just don't, again, going to buy this, that this is not going to cost more money. It's going to put more levels of bureaucracy on us. And it's not achieving anything because the people who are not abiding by the law now, they're not going to abide by the law any more on this than they have in the past. So why create another level?
Mr. Lindeman.
Chris, I believe every point that I was going to make has been made.
Okay. Mr. Albrecht.
Yeah, you talked about taking out the names of the adults that are there. At the end of the one sentence there listing the various things, information that has to be given, it talks about the approximate dates of the rental and the lease term. Is that really necessary?
That'll all be out.
That would be out too? Boy, you just...
Ms. Adeshiko.
Yeah, just to answer some of those questions, Mr. Gertz, I thought it was pretty interesting. I had some phone calls from friends that are landlords in the cities that you were calling and or having someone call on your behalf. You could have come to me with these questions. You could have directed landlords to me. This isn't anything that was done secretly or behind anyone's back. Everything's been very public. I've been talking about this in meetings that have been public since March, whether they're on Zoom or in council chambers. I've had I believe 3 committee meetings regarding this issue. I believe you were at one, and those were also public, announced during meetings and on Facebook. The ordinance in its entirety is listed on our city's website. I have posted it on Facebook. Mr. Powell has posted it on Facebook. It has been available for everyone to read. Again, it's been discussed at length during meetings, which is fine. I am all for that. I am all for differing opinions. As you know, talking to people, I did decide let's strike the adult attendance from the ordinance and anything pertaining to that. You were at the meeting where the fire chief was explaining the issues that he's had at great length. And again, this is something that is in our city's master plan. It's actually a simplified version of what is in our city's master plan. Our city's master plan says to do yearly inspections, and it cites a city, I believe, up north in Ohio, where they charge $75 a year for inspections. We don't want to do this. This isn't a money grab. This doesn't have a fee unless it's not updated. And if you're going to say that, you know, the ones that aren't going to fill it out, then why bother? I mean, by that idea, why bother having any ordinances on the book? People won't follow them. We have to have some structure in place. The homes, the people that upkeep their properties, living next door, living on the same streets with some of these, they're the ones that are suffering. Their property values are suffering. I have people contact me all the time about this. And then I contact our Patrick, Rick, excuse me, Rick Martin. And again, it's the same issue. It seems to be, you know, these companies that you say that they should be able to find this person. Obviously, they're not. Or they, again, are spending hours and hours of man time on it. And that is costing the city. So, yeah, I mean, they should be able to find somebody. Absolutely, I agree. I also agree that our building department needs an overhaul. I'm with you there. But, you know, in the meantime, we can put something like this in place, especially for those citizens that are living next door to these properties.
Mr. Albrecht.
One last thing. I don't think I've spoken this much in forever. Do we need to designate what timely registration is?
I'm sorry?
The section that says failure to make timely registration or update an existing registration shall be subject to a $100 fee, which probably should read fine. But what's timely? Week, month, 6 months?
Fisher, well, no, go ahead. I thought maybe you had, did you have an answer for that?
No.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Edichico.
In the timely manner, first there is a December 1st deadline to, once we pass this, and that's the deadline we put on here, to get that up on the city's website, and they will be notified. A notice will go out to all residents through the water bill, which is something we discussed in the committee meeting and with Patrick. As far as the timely registration, I would have to check with the building department. If they do come across a property where they cannot find the owner and track someone down for maintenance and repairs, then we will have to see what the time frame would be that they have to fill that out. I believe it would fall under the same regulations, and talking with Dave Stevenson, is our building department code is when they get that notice, they have so long to cut the grass and make repairs.
Any other questions? You have a follow-up?
I do have a follow-up. In my opinion, posting things on Facebook is not officially notifying your property owner. I don't think most property owners sit on the computer all day long checking all these Facebook pages to find out. I mentioned our offices in Sharonville. We do own property in Sharonville. They're not doing any of this. You know, there's a whole big difference between Sharonville and Reading. And Reading sends me a letter about every year, I guess it is, wanting to know the name of the tenants. It comes from the tax office so that they can make sure they're getting the proper tax. Sharonville doesn't do that. They have direct contact with all the property owners to to officially notify people, it takes paper, it takes a letter sent to that person, whether it's a business, whether it's an individual. Facebook postings are not official.
Randy, did you have something else on this subject?
No, we'll just let it go. Wait
Okay.
till the ordinance.
Mr. Powell. Hold on. Go ahead, Mr. Powell.
Just a question. If we do not know who the owners are, how can we send them notification?
The recorder at Hamilton County Courthouse knows who the people are.
I'm quite aware of the recorder's
I
office.
would think that the people in the waterworks know who the property owners are. So that if the person doesn't pay their water bill, they know who to go after to get the water bill paid.
The next suggestion, because I'm constantly hearing that, well, people aren't going to follow it anyways. Well, tonight, let's put an ordinance on the floor repealing all speed limits in Reading, because very few people follow the speed limit. Does that sound like a good idea? No. Just because people aren't following it doesn't mean that it's got, we were presented an issue with the administration, the fire chief came to committee meetings, expressed why he had the issue, why we need this. The tax department cannot share the information with us. It's just, I understand from your perspective that it's some additional burden to fill out this form once a year or just to keep it updated with your contact info. I understand that, but on the other hand, it's not you that we had the issue with. It's the people that we can't track down. Those are the ones we have the issue with. We're hoping to prevent that and clean some of this nonsense up that goes on. That's all this is about.
Okay, we will go to our next audience participation. State your name and address.
Shirley Leach, and I live at 2621 Hunt Road in Reading, Ohio. I've owned the Cherry Shore apartment since 2001. I've never had an issue with my grass not being cut or any kind of thing, so I guess I'm just having a real problem trying to figure out. I mean, I'm a small landlord, so, I don't go on your site every day and look and see what's happening. This is the first time I even knew about this. And I think that people should be informed ahead of time. That this happened in Gulf Manor, and they had to send out letters to every property owner. But that wasn't done here, so. Anyway, that's my opinion. Yes.
Did you say that they have this in place at Gulf Manor?
They tried to get it in place, and it failed.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to address council on any other subject? You can choose another subject. Okay, then we will proceed.
Mr. President, I'd like to make sure that the council agenda is correct and make a, I don't know if I need to make a motion, just in addition that at the last council meeting, we voted to have a fourth reading on the question of the ordinance I put forth to assure that timely the wires would be put underground at the PDD. What I'm hearing from the mayor tonight, I would like to put it on the agenda.
Okay.
It should be on there. I think it was just an oversight.
Anyone want to second that motion?
I don't, okay.
Motion made by Mr. Gertz, seconded by Mr. Lindeman to add the ordinance which deals with the underground relocation of the poles. It's just another ordinance. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Then we will add that to the tonight's agenda.
Chris?
Yes.
While we're doing that, can we also, there was some late correspondence to Carla. I believe the gentleman would like to have that read tonight, so that would have to be approved too, I believe.
But before we move on this ordinance, I wanted it on the agenda because I prepared the ordinance and I asked for a fourth reading, but I'm hearing from the mayor tonight, if I'm correct, that this is being completed. Is that what I understand, Mayor? That the wires are going to be, the conduit is all in, they just have to pull the wires and then remove the existing poles and so forth. Is that your understanding?
Well, Mr. Gertz, I told you that I would look into where that's at.
Well, the reason
I was the one that's, because I purposely talked to Patrick today about the underground wires.
Okay,
And I knew that they were running the conduit, and the conduit is in, and they're in the process of scheduling all the utility companies to get them to run their wires.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. So, see, I wasn't even nice.
Okay.
So anyway, the reason I'm saying this is that I want to make a motion to table my ordinance now. I wanted it into the record. I want to make a motion to table the ordinance because it appears that it's going to be completed in a timely way, and that was the purpose of my ordinance.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Mr. Gertz, seconded by Mr. Fischescher to table the ordinance that was added for the fourth reading. I'll go ahead and take a roll call on that one.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Gertz?
Yes?
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Fischescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Ed DeChico?
Yes.
Okay, so that ordinance is added and now tabled. I think there was a question about communications. I didn't get anything from Carla before I came down here. When did the communication come in today?
5:32 p.m.
5:32 p.m. Do you have the communication? I'll let council decide. Anyone want to make a motion to add that?
I'll make a motion from Mr. Likens.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Fischescher, second by Mr. Powell to add the communication to the agenda tonight. I'll take a voice yay if you want the communication added. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
All opposed? Then we can go ahead and read that at this time because that's our next agenda item.
Again, from Don Likens. I'm Don Likens and live at 8415 Reading Road and own multiple rental units in Reading. I'm against the rental registration ordinance for many reasons, as you know. I feel you still have not provided why this is needed, other than some broad excuses such as a single pedophile, one run-down house. This will be a huge burden for our owners, as you already collect this information from us. Plus, I know you will eventually charge us for this, as you cannot support it without additional staff. You have not consulted with any landlords who will be impacted, and if you had, would not have this sitting before a decision tonight. Include us landlords in decisions like this, as we are your partners, yet you treat us like foes. Please vote no. Thank you for your time. Don Likens.
I'll make a motion that we receive and file the letter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Then the communication will be marked received and filed. Tonight we have a special guest. I will introduce Mr. Cage Bradford, and he can introduce his subject and the importance to the city of Reading.
Thank you for your patience, sir, for all this going on. We appreciate you being here.
My pleasure. So thank you, council, for inviting me here to speak. I would like to put a special thank you out to the Beat Drive team led by Christy Ayahuasca, Auditor Sabrina Smith, who has been wonderful, Councilman Don Lemon, as well as a particularly fired up bunch of residents, including Patrick Norman.
Yes.
I am here with the Hamilton County Recycling and Solid Waste Department. My name is Gage Bradford. I'm a community specialist, and I'm here with good news. My office has selected Reading as a quote-unquote target community for waste reduction purposes. It's a 2-year initiative for a target community with a yearly budget of $15,000 that my office will be willing to spend in support of waste reduction initiatives. just to give some background, the reason we selected Reading, or the reason I was ever considering Reading, is because in this part of the county, there are some communities that every year after year lead in this field as far as keeping things out of landfill and so on and so forth, such as Amberley Village, Blue Ash, even down Sycamore or towards the top of the board as well. So just a little background, when I say diversion rate, that is 100% of waste generated in Reading, what percentage of that is not sent to landfill, okay? So in 2018, Reading's diversion rate, am I doing that?
It could be your computer next to the mic.
Try this. See if that helps. So in 2018, the diversion rate for Reading was about 7.5%. In 2019, it was about 8.5%. But last year, it dropped all the way down to below 5%. That's somewhat typical for the pandemic year. So many people working from home. It took a dip countywide. Earlier, we were speaking about the Residential Recycling Incentive Grant that my office administers, the RRI. That's where the money comes from that we were speaking about that Reading missed out on this past year as well as 2016. So in 2018, that amount was $3,800, and in 2019, that amount was $3,700. Just for comparison, Amberley Village, who this past year led all of the county in diversion from landfill, had a 60% diversion rate, which got them close to $15,000 through the grant program. The grant program starts at $900,000 every year, and each community, all 48 throughout the county are welcome to apply. 46 applied this past year, Reading not being one of them. Blue Ash, 32%, they got $35,000 in this past grant cycle. So $3,200, you know, maybe a drop in the bucket, but this program, the better you are at diverting, the more money you're going to recoup. So moving forward, like I said, the Target Community Program is set for 2 years. I'm going to be reaching out businesses, places of worship. I'm already involved with some of the government happenings, public spaces, as well as residential areas as well. This could be educational, promotional, infrastructure, you name it. It's not meant to be following, you know, the same strategy with every community. This is all about Reading, all about what you need, all about what your residents need, all about what the businesses need. We're here to help. There will be other resources that could be tied in to the $15,000 budget yearly, which is some other grants, whether that be through my office or other entities. And that's, you know, I don't want to get too much into the weeds. That's the general premise, and this is the first month being officially designated a target community. So we're just now developing surveys, plans, ideas, all this stuff to gather the information we need to set real hard goals and plan it out, map it out. I will say lastly, before I open to any questions, this year is particularly important from a waste diversion standpoint for this city, because you guys are going to be going out to bid for your waste hauling contract this fall, I believe. Currently, as far as recycling goes, for a residential area, for homeowners, each homeowner currently has to subscribe to Rumpke, who is the current contract holder, to get recycling offered at their home. That countywide is basically a death sentence as far as really achieving any solid numbers, keeping things out of landfill. That's an extra step for the homeowner, that's an extra fee, you name it. So when you look at communities such as Blue Ash or Amberley Village, sure, the residents are are paying for that service one way or the other. But because they don't have to contact Rumpke directly or get a separate bill monthly, all they have to do is say, hey, yeah, I'll take that recycling bin you're offering. Every Wednesday I'll set it out. That is going to be crucial moving forward as far as recycling and waste diversion goes for this community. The Recycling and Solid Waste District strongly advises to the council, Mr. Mayor, use whatever power you can to try and get recycling included in the next waste hauling contract for each homeowner, free of charge. So it's subscription or included. Currently, your subscription, the number's not so great. The participation rate, I'm waiting on an answer from Rumpke, but I assume it's 10, maybe 15% of households. And that's all I've got. I don't want to get too far into the weeds. I'm going to be here for 2 years. I plan on working 1 or 2 days a week from the public library here just to get more acclimated with the community. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Lindeman.
First of all, thank you very much for coming, and I'm very pleased to hear that you selected Reading for this project. I'll answer your last question first. We started with about 667 people that were signed up for recycling, and we're now above 900. Maybe that's not a good record, but we're moving forward. More and more people are signing up. And at this time, we've already passed an ordinance to include recycling with the waste. That contract is up the end of December, I believe. And Patrick told me today that he's very close to being able to send those out for bids. So the council will have to make a decision when we get those bids back. But
I do understand there's a lot of factors that go into taking extra tax dollars to include recycling. But I will say, from the purposes of my department, this target community program will likely be able to be much more effective if that goes through.
And I'll take this opportunity to say further that I did not bring up the fact that we lost money in 2016 this council, because I do understand that Safety Service Director has a lot of responsibilities, and sure, $3,800 is a lot, but in the scope of the big picture, I didn't think it was necessary to beat him down on that. And I knew that at the time when I had a personal discussion with him on that, he certainly understood that it was something he regretted, but it was too late. We tried to go back, and they wouldn't allow us to give them any more information. So anyway, I just want to say that.
Certainly not here to bash anyone, just
No.
facts of the program that I just recently inherited.
Mayor.
Did I catch you correctly? If everybody in Reading, every hausehold, got a recycling garbage can, it would be free of charge to them?
No.
No.
So,
No,
so
okay.
you'll be going out to bid soon for waste hauling contracts. And there's typically 2 ways that they go with recycling. You either build it into the contract where it's a service that is paid for through the government money, and that is not what is currently happening in Reading. Or to save some money on the front end, you say, Rumpke, we don't need recycling included, just trash. That puts it under subscription category where, landowner A has to call Rumpke, this is my address, I'd like recycling. Okay, Rumpke, we're bringing you a bin and we're going to send you a bill every month. Which typically just, a lot of people don't want to take those 2 extra steps, or they feel like the money's not worth it.
Okay, just to be clear though, and this might not be totally accurate, it's been a few years. I think last time it was people here in Reading paid for their garbage. It was $10 a month. And to get the recycling bin, it was going to be $13. Does that sound relatively
About
close?
$13.50.
And here was my problem with it. I wish, as a community, we go out to vote. I've been a recycler since I was a child. We made money recycling. I wonder how many pounds upon tons go over to Hirschberg's or over to Arlington Heights Recycling that don't get weighed into our diversion rate. I wish you would pay attention and find out. I think you'd find out it's quite a bit of weight because a lot of people from Reading appreciate the extra $10, $15, $20 that they make, or the cans that they donate to churches or this, that, or the other. But I don't like, as a government official, mandating it on everybody. I wish it would go to a vote and be voted in. I've just never felt like I was an elitist and say, hey, this is best for all you do it. You know, I like to have people's input on it. So that's been my only pushback. I'm a recycler. I'm down to recycling bins behind the stadium virtually every single day. It's amazing to me what my family recycles. My mother lives about 8 houses down the street, so I go to the recycling bin to my mom's 4 or 5, sometimes 6 days a week. We recycle everything, and I'm all for it. I'm not for mandating it for everybody. I wish we would put it on the ballot. That's mine, and that's, of course, I don't get to vote on that, so.
Can I ask a question, President?
Yes, go ahead.
Just the dumpsters that Bo just spoke of, are they included in the diversion rate?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
You'd be amazed at how much goes to Hirschberg's and to Arlington Heights, amongst other places. You'd be surprised. But anyway.
One note I do have that's very interesting, particularly in contrast to some of your neighbors once again. Is it correct that the city does pick up yard waste from residents around town? Through Rumpke and all of the other reporting mechanisms, in the past, yard waste, not sent to the landfill, collected by you guys and sent to mulch or whatever, does contribute to diversion rate as well. So that's another thing that can boost numbers really well. And in 2020, there was no weight reported. Which
we had 4,000 yards. We had 4,000 yards.
We have,
Yeah.
And
tons of it.
again, Seth, I thought Seth was reporting it.
So
I know
anyway-
I brought it up to the safety, to Daryl.
We're underreported. We're absolutely right. Daryl has
I mean, we're doing it.
mountains.
We're just not getting credit for it.
And a lot of these other communities, I don't know if they offer that service, where they pick up branches and grind them up and,
Well, it's same for leaves in the fall.
yeah. So anyway, we're a bit, and not to say we don't want to get better, because we do. No doubt
And
about
maybe,
it.
you know, maybe I'm hoping that that might be part of what you're going to do in the community in the 2 years, is kind of seek out some of the things that we're actually doing and maybe not getting credit for.
Absolutely.
Hey, in the meantime, we'll work with you hand and foot. We're all for it.
Yeah.
I've been a big
So what-
recycler, and I've been pushing people to recycle, and I've been asking people in administration about recycling, and 4,000 yards is a lot, not to
Yeah.
be counted.
Mhm.
I've talked to people about it.
Yeah.
And that very well could just be because in this last grant cycle, Reading did not put in an application, and since it's self-tracked, it didn't come across our books. It could be as simple as that.
Yeah.
Well, hey, it's another thing that ties in. You know, earlier it was said to you all that as a mayor, I can just hire as many people as I like. And, there's already mechanisms, and that is absolutely false. We have to live within a budget. X amount of dollars is allocated, for each department, and I have to live within those means. I can't just hire anybody I want. And as a matter of fact, there's an ordinance that restricts me from hiring a full-time city clerk as compared to part-time. Those things would help with recording these things, and I've been asking for it for some time, and I hope we move forward and do it. I will get an ordinance out for a full-time city clerk to replace one part-timer. It would help with a multitude of things. And I think the building department should have it as well. So
who are the people in Reading that you're working with directly?
Well, I believe I was initially approached maybe by Sabrina as well as the We Drive team, probably first
Okay.
and foremost.
Is that an official?
17.
I mean, that might have been the start of it, but is that how you officially want to continue?
I want to continue with anyone and everyone, like I
Okay.
said.
What do you need
business
from
owners,
government,
spaces.
from council?
Right now, just let that soak into your brain and carry it with you every day. If the police building does not have recycling, I can get that done in a week. If we need another public drop-off, if There's a compost initiative that needs to go. If churches don't have infrastructure needs that they have. I mean, it can be very specific, it can be very broad, it can be residents, public spaces, businesses, churches.
Do you have a website?
Yes, HamiltonCountyRecycles.org.
And you'll get that to me.
And I apologize, I don't have a business card or anything of the sort. I'm still too green to have those things. But a few of you do have my contact information, and I would be more than happy if you just gave it out at will.
Could you tell us a little bit about what we can do with the money that we get back? Not the $15,000 that you're talking about a year, but $3,800 a year. Well, what can we do with that money?
So the rules do change. The higher diversion rate that Reading would have, the less restrictions on that money as far as where it can be spent. But it can be pretty innovative. It just needs to be spent on a waste reduction initiative, and it has to be sustainable. So it can't be, you know, you're paying for this compost from your festival to be hauled off, which is a great diversion strategy. But since it's a one-off, you know, non-sustainable thing, we would not be willing to use RRI funds on that because.
Well, I've suggested containers for plastic and aluminum and that sort of thing in the parks. I don't know. I don't think we have any of those.
That's actually one of the. I recently went on a tour around the city. One of the first things that I'm definitely going to be able to jump on without even being as familiar with the city as I want to be. The parks, low-hanging fruit. We can pair every trash can with a recycling bin as long as the city is able to get that recycling taken to the proper area, whether that's the public drop-off or not. That's one of the first things I'm going to be doing. But you know, we've had, and I could come up with a list of things that other communities are spending the monies on. But we've had people buy like the big things on the sidewalks for flowers and such. As long as those are built with recycled material, you can do that. Benches, playgrounds. So I can send more thorough instructions or rules on that, but recycled material, recycled content, infrastructural things, but typically, you know, maybe you would want to spend your RI funds on bins to put in your parks, right? But with being a target community, you're not going to have to do that. So maybe what you want to do for the next 2 years is sit on that money and save it for when you're not getting the target community funds. With being a target community, there's going to be a lot of things that I can do without, you know, really having to go through too many channels or, you know, difficulties getting those monies.
And I'll try to go to Hirschberg's and Arlington. You know, you have to give an ID to recycle these days. It's incredible. You know, they might be able to tell us how much comes from Reading.
I don't know that they count that, though. I don't know that they'll count it.
I thought he said he counted anything.
If Rumpke, let's say, Rumpke is your current hauler, correct? If Rumpke is taking recycling from Reading and for whatever reason reporting it to my office as Amberley Village Recycling, that would be a problem. Now, what powers you have to change the methods that Rumpke does their routes or their tracking or their estimated weights?
I don't think he was actually saying that. What he's saying is that people bring bags of aluminum cans to an aluminum recycling place. How do we get credit for that? Or is there a way?
So you're talking about going out of town and trying to get money for a bag of aluminum cans?
That's what people do. That's what he's saying, right?
Absolutely.
No, and they take other metals over to Hirschberg is a recycling company here.
I don't have the answer for that. I'm sure that a solution can be found, whether that's residents bringing weight tickets to the city building. That's a big ask. Or mailing them in, or having a deal with the local recycling partners that aren't in town. If they get any recycling material from a Reading address, you said they have to show ID.
Oh, absolutely.
Have them
Show ID.
report that directly to your office. Then every year, report that in the RRI grant. It'll be counted.
Sounds like the right way to do that.
I think maybe I'm understanding it a little bit differently. If you would have like 100% of your waste coming from Reading, what you put in your trash can is a certain percentage, and what you put in Reading recycling is a certain percentage. So honestly, I don't think it counts, and you have to come up with a way for Reading residents to be motivated to keep your recycling in Reading. Like, it doesn't count overall, because what they're measuring is what is Reading putting in their trash can, what is Reading putting in their recycling. So it's not like taking away necessarily. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, but it could still be an addition.
Sure.
So like, let's say lead acid batteries. You know, that's not something that should be going in residential streams, whether that be the trash or recycling. But it can be recycled properly. And if it is, there should be a weight ticket associated with it. And that weight ticket could be in addition to whatever, you know, curbside recycling is being considered. So the 5% recycling rate that you're at, if let's say every community member that's taking their cans or their whatever out of town and still getting them recycled, if those numbers could be reported, it's still going to increase the money that Reading is getting in the diversion rate.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
you're really going to want to do whatever's easiest for the residents, because you're not going to get people to
Bring their ticket.
But if they're already doing them, you want to get credit. Anything else from anyone?
You'll be back, I'm assuming, to address council periodically.
I'll be
Give us
around
updates.
town, like I said, please feel free. I know not everyone has my contact information right now, but please feel free to pass it out as seen fit.
Yeah, I'll get it from Sabrina for myself, yes.
And
Nice
yes,
to have.
I'll be around town and not hard to find, I promise that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Again, like I mentioned at the beginning, you're welcome to stick around if you
You're crazy.
if you want to. You got an audience participation? Do you want to step up to the microphone? People in the audience that they can't hear you at home if to hear the questions and stuff.
I have a few buildings in the city of Reading, which I love Reading. I have good renters. I try to keep the property up as well as I can.
Name and address, please.
Yes.
Joseph Hilton, live in Montgomery.
Okay.
And I try to keep the property up as well as I can. And this is the first night that I've heard of this paper. I'm not on Facebook. I also have friends here, and they've never heard of this either. So this is the first time. You know, when I get my water bill, I know that comes. That's in the mail. And, you know, I pay it. I've been late a few times, I know that. Very few. So I don't think this has been out there in the field for everybody to hear and see and know about. I don't think it's been advertised very well. You know, Bo, years ago, I've met you many times. I know very few people here on council. And, of course, when it comes to the building and some work needs to be done on it, I hear it and I do the work. But I do think that this here needs to be more published. I don't know how you go about doing it, but I think the first thing is put a small note in the water bill, and I'll guarantee you I'll hear about it.
We'll work on that, I promise you that. You know, this isn't my ordinance. Again, it didn't have my blessing at the beginning. So anyway, I haven't been in tune with that. We'll put something out with the water bill if we can. I don't think you'd object to that, or anybody on your committee?
That's part of the plan.
So we'll get that done. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I suggest.
Thanks, Joe.
Any other audience? Okay, so we're going to move on with our agenda here. Now that the guest speaker has left, we are into. I would like at this time to talk to council about adding a committee to our weekly 7. it would be in support of the bridal district. So, it could be official name, something like Committee to Support the Reading Bridal District Businesses, or shortened to, Bridal Support. But I'd like to nominate Mr. Lindeman to be the chair of that short-term committee. I pick Mr. Lindeman. We have talked a couple of times, but Mr. Lindeman has proven over his years to be able to get into a subject and do a tremendous job of bringing the facts together. In fact, like there's properties that the city owns. He has pulled together resources and filled 4 notebooks of about 150 properties that we have. And I'm not sure who's able to have used them yet, but eventually they are going to be used probably extensively.
What's the new committee's name?
Just something to support the bridal district.
Okay.
A Reading district support, bridal district support.
Well, I think he already is in there. That's his committee, is the utilities, buildings, and lands. He's already been doing it. We've had a meeting already on it.
Yeah, but I don't want to, I
didn't
didn't,
start getting reports from them for monthly reports to repeat at council.
so
I
you
was
don't.
an original member. We-
So really, I'm just bringing it up to council, to vote and form a new committee. Is that something that anybody wants to make a motion to do?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Ms. Edichico, seconded by Mr. Fischesser to form a formal committee in support of the bridal district from the government of Reading.
Discussion quickly.
Go ahead.
I just want to point out that I certainly have worked with the bridal district. I've been attending in their meetings. My daughter is on the board as legal counsel, but I think it's redundant. Mr. Lindeman's already taken this upon himself, and we've had meetings concerning the extension of the bridal district along with other uses of public buildings, utilities, buildings, and lands. So.
I think Chris is just trying to make it official, Tony. Because the first time that he offered it to me, I politely said no. And then I talked to my committee, and they said they'd be interested in doing it, so.
Still part of your
2 out of
committee? Is that
3.
where it's going? Same group in the committee?
No, I really kind of see this being maybe reforming itself after a year or so, becoming more of an economic development type of committee. Not just the bridal, but expanding to help other businesses in this city directly, not through lands development, lands and contracts and stuff.
Well, true, it's why we started the Reading Bridal District, and they have been a huge help to economic development. And council knowing more would be good.
It's a special
Reading-
committee at
Reading
this time.
Bridal District, for people that may not know, is the largest in North American continent. Not just in Reading, not just in Ohio, but the whole continent. It's the largest bridal district. It's something to be very proud of, and I think it's something that we have a tremendous base to work from, that Mr. Gertz actually put the ordinance on to pave Benson Street. It was passed unanimously, and it's a good start. I think that great things can be further accomplished on Benson Street and in the rest of the bridal district. And I think it can be a trickle-down type thing. A lot of people and committees will be involved, I think. Anyway, so.
I agree.
Okay, so I got a motion made by Mr. Chico, seconded by Mr. Fischesser, to assign a special committee for supporting the bridal district with a chairperson nominated by myself of Mr. Lindeman. I'll take a roll call on that establishment.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Gertz?
Well, Mr. Lindeman wants it, so I'll vote yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
Yes.
Mr. Fischescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Edelchico?
Yes.
Then that is formed, and we will have that as an 8th committee meeting discussion on our monthly basis. Okay, after that, I want to go to, I'm going to skip other business, because that was mainly the other business, unless someone else has something else to form a committee or put something into a committee. Then we'll go to a legislative session, reading of any resolutions.
No, sir.
Reading of our 3 ordinances, starting with the ones that, well, we got a 4th. Go ahead and start the 4th.
I know we tabled it.
Before we do that, I'd like to go ahead and turn the meeting over to Mr. Bemis, or Mayor Bemis, for his announcement.
Okay, you know, I got a call earlier today from Carla, well, really from Carla to Patrick, and Patrick to me, to sign an ordinance that was passed 2 weeks ago. And Patrick looked into it. There's no way that we would be able to accomplish what was put on that ordinance in time to use $150,000 that we received from Community Development Block Grant dollars. You know, we have until August 21st to have any project engineered, all the specifications, and they would not have time to fulfill all the ordinance that was passed. So for only the second time in my 17-plus years as mayor, I've notified our council president, President Nesbitt, and I said, "Dear Chris, I am notifying you that this letter will serve as my veto of ordinance 2021-22 concerning paving and road improvements to Benson Street as prescribed by Ohio Revised Code Section 731-27. As mayor, I do not object to paving Benson Street. In fact, we'll have bid openings on spending the money that we have from Community Development Block Grant dollars. We have those engineered specs to receive those dollars. We'll have those bid openings August 5th, I've been told. But however, you know, I do not object to paving Benson Street as a mill overlay project, which is what it is. You know, we only have about $110,000 to spend from these dollars. Again, it has to be engineered, specified by August 21st. However, sections 3, 4, and 5 of ordinance 2021-22 cannot be completed in time to comply with deadlines set by Hamilton County for community development block grant projects. We would lose our money if we went by that ordinance. I fully support accomplishing everything in the ordinance. And what we're not able to accomplish with the money in this round, in the timeline that we have, I'll totally support in the future. But again, this will be my second veto. My first, I think, was in 2006 on someone proposing a performance audit that we didn't need. So anyway, any questions?
Does that mean we lose the money?
No, that means that we don't lose the money.
We get it.
That means if we decided to get everything engineered that's in ordinance 2021-22, we would run out of time and lose the money. We had the reason why it's taken so long. Look, Patrick was at council in November and suggested we use the money for paving. He was outvoted by council. Council decided to use the money in Caney Park restrooms, which was fine with us, much needed. We went through everything to get all the specifications to use the money for Caney Park restrooms, only to find out that we weren't allowed to use CDBG dollars in a floodplain. So it was tossed back to us at the last minute and went back. The quickest thing that we could come up with was a paving project to be able to use this money. We have until August 21st to have things engineered. The road is engineered for mill overlay. I think it's only $110,000 because part of the money can be used on some things at Caney Park. You know, lighting and fans at the big pavilion, lighting in the restrooms. We're okay with CDBG.
So we're going to be using the money, and how are we going to use it?
We're going to pave, we're going to mill overlay from Jefferson.
Okay, and where?
From Jefferson Avenue, it's only $110,000. We're yet to get the bids from Jefferson to the Mill Creek, and we'll get a separate bid from Jefferson to Reading Road, And if there was extra money in the Streets and Curbs Fund, and council decides to spend it there, fine with me.
Explain again where this money's going to be spent? To where? Jefferson to the Mill Creek.
You know, we have $110,000, Tony. Okay, all we have is an engineer's estimate is how far $110,000.
I thought it was 144, though.
Some of the dollars are going to be used by council wishes for materials in the restrooms at Koenig Park. Some of the things that council came up with to do in Koenig Park to the restrooms, some were CDBG acceptable, some were not.
So, again, where is this paving going to take place?
On Benson Street, as far as the $110,000 will go.
Oh, on Benson,
On
from
Benson.
Jefferson to the Mill
From
Creek.
Jefferson
You're just
to the
going
Mill
to
Creek.
mill it and pave.
That's the guess, however far it'll go. We'll take
It
as
is
far as it goes.
disconcerting, though, Mayor. I mean, this was brought up, and this is money from 18, 19, and 20. We had 3 years
Well,
to decide.
Mr.
Let me,
Boss,
well,
Mr.
let
Gertz,
me
let me
finish.
speak.
Let me
Let me
finish. Let me
speak. Let
finish.
me
This is
speak.
council,
No,
and I
The mayor
have, I
still
have
has
the floor.
No, mayor does.
In November of this year, our Safety and Services Director requested that this money be used for paving. He was told by Mr. Gertz to shut up at that meeting and that his opinion didn't
I
matter.
don't remember that at all, Mayor.
Oh, you don't remember
No,
that?
it's
That's
a
good.
record.
There's a lot of things you conveniently forget.
Yeah, you forget things, too.
Oh, wow, it's,
Are you done?
Yeah.
Mr. Gertz.
This money was allocated to the city from 2018, 19, and 2020.
and we get to pick one year.
Right,
out
now
of
let
that.
me finish. So, we had the opportunity to come up with a plan, and we're talking about, now, by my recollection, it was brought before the floor somewhere in November, December, and it was, I believe, I'm not gonna put words in his mouth, but I believe Mr. Lynn said, well, let's spend it on the Johns, and we tried that the previous cycle, and that got mixed up, ended up buying big toys. That was for 17, 16, and 15. This has just been such a mix-up of trying to properly get money that's coming on grants that are not being properly administered, and that's exactly what I think Mr. Collins is trying to point out with his discussion earlier in the very beginning of this meeting. And this was brought before council and the administration back in I believe it was just, November or December that we needed, because of COVID, they kicked it out till August. And here we are, 2 weeks from August, trying to figure out how we're going to spend this money. And to me, it's just mismanagement. We gave you every opportunity to make a decision, and they found this out 3 months ago that, I think everybody that lives in the valley knows that Koenig Park's in a floodplain. That wasn't anything new to learn. It's beyond my belief. Here we are, but I'm glad we're going to use part of it on cleaning up the part of Benson Street.
Well, it's going to be used at Koenig Park. What can be used at Koenig Park, and the rest of it's going to be on Benson Street. And as the mayor said, he supports any other parts of that ordinance when we need to get around to those different things that that ordinance
legislation,
has.
won't we, to do this?
Pardon me?
I think we'll have to pass legislation at some point to do this. That's more than $50,000, so you're getting all the bids, but we haven't approved the contracts. I guess you better get an ordinance on the floor. $110,000 to pave, I mean, it's more than 50, you can't do it without an ordinance. And I don't believe that's been voted by council that I know of to approve the project. I will vote for it because I don't want to lose $100 and some thousand dollars, $140,000.
Well, there's going to be a bid process. It starts on August 5th, I understand. So that would then go into the ordinance
Well, we
when
could
it
call a
comes.
special council meeting during the second or fourth Tuesday, I guess.
You'd love that,
Okay.
wouldn't you?
No,
Okay,
I'm just
so-
saying that would be a way to solve the problem.
Well, it was about a year ago that we reviewed all of this, and I have it in my notes at home that we went through the years for the block grant money, and council allocated it towards paving Benson Street for the section from Jefferson to the Mill Creek and for repairs to the bathrooms at the park. So the intention was to kind of split that up. And so I believe we had voted on it then and approved
I would beg to
Spending
differ with you. I think it was all going to go to redo the Canning Park restrooms, which was going to cost that much.
It was my understanding that there was a ranking. The ranking was the Canning Park bathrooms.
Yes.
Yeah, but we
But
can't do
well,
that.
I understand that. But, I mean, there was a ranking that we received and that we went by.
And was Benson Street on that ranking? The
I think
paving
it
of Benson?
Yeah, I
Paving
have
was.
all that in my notes at home.
So as one thing falls off, the next on the list is done. I don't see a problem with that myself, so. Let's go ahead and do the ordinances. So read the first ordinance, please. Third reading.
An ordinance establishing a registration system for residential rental property and adult tenants, although I think we're striking that, and occupants thereof.
I'd like to suggest that this be a third reading. We have a fourth reading in a couple weeks and have a amended ordinance based upon our comments this evening.
Right.
I second that.
I'd like to make the motion to amend the ordinance and strike the line in section 1 requiring the names of tenants, and removing section 3 in its entirety, and removing "and adult tenants" from the ordinance title.
Okay. So but I think what Mr. Albrink is asking is to redo the ordinance
Yeah.
and have a fourth reading.
Right. That's was what I was going to suggest too, and
Okay.
that way it's on
Well,
TV
it's
at
been
least once.
suggested, it's been seconded. Let's go. All right?
Right.
Okay.
There was discussion, Mr. Lynn.
All right.
You have to vote to amend the ordinance.
So now that I'm very confused, who was the motion made by? Who was second?
I'll second.
You were second, okay. Motion made by Mr. Albrink, seconded by Mr. Lynn, to have a fourth reading on this with an updated ordinance with some of the comments that Ms. Edichico has made. I'll take a roll call.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Gertz?
I don't like the ordinance, no.
Mr. Lind?
Yes.
Mr. Albrink?
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman?
No.
Mr. Fischescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico?
Yes.
That motion passed, so we will have a fourth reading on the first Tuesday of August. Our next ordinance, please.
An ordinance amending certain sections of the Reading Code of Ordinances that addresses council meetings and declaring emergency.
That's a second reading.
That's fine.
Okay. We will have a third reading on that in 2 weeks.
Is that okay?
Any other miscellaneous business?
Yeah, I'm going to have I'd like to mention, I'm going to have a Second Ward Advisory Committee meeting next Tuesday here. Anybody who wants to come and comment, you're more than welcome to show up. It's at 7:30.
Couple of things, if I can, Chris. August 3rd, our Reading Police Department has what they call a National Night Out at Canning Park. You know, what we like about it is it's everyone's opportunity to come to Canning Park and meet our police officers. They want to meet people, and they want you to get to know them. It's from 5 to 8. You know, most years they have food and some good entertainment, you know. Last year, I think or 2 years ago, K-9 unit for Blue Ash and somebody coming down from the sky and landed in a pinpoint spot. But anyway, it's well worth the time. You know,
Fire department's down there and.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Other
SWAT.
police departments.
The new fire
But
department.
it's a great opportunity, it truly is.
That's a Tuesday, right?
It's a Tuesday.
And We Thrive will be there too.
What?
August 3rd's a
August.
Tuesday.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
What
be there
time?
till 7:30. So-
Also that night, we're working on, we have what's called Hamilton County 911 Alert. And unfortunately, here in the city of Reading, I think we only have 500 people signed up to get alerts from Hamilton County, which could be very helpful for us if something specific happened here in the city of Reading. So you'll have an opportunity that night to get signed up, and it'd be very easy to do. Really, basically, the main thing they need is your address and contact number. Again, if we need to notify you if a railroad car would go off the tracks and spill something or anything like that. So it'll be a chance to do that. Also, August 28th, the The American Legion's Ladies Auxiliary is going to have what they call a Taste of Reading at Koenig Park, August 28th from noon to 11 o'clock. There will be entertainment the entire time. Reading High School's band starts at noontime that day. Dance teams from the high school and St. Peter and Paul Academy, and then some bands and some good food, and the Legion's Ladies Auxiliary would love if you came. On September 22nd, our Reading Bridal District has their Fall in Love event. You know, when I became mayor, there was not an organized Reading Bridal District. We've organized them. There's not, according to our economic development consultant, an empty shop on Benson that's rentable. So anyway, they've done very, very well pushing and promoting our own Reading Bridal District. It's been worth its weight in gold, and they work with the Chamber of Commerce. And then I want to remind everybody of Farmers Market from 4 to 7 every Friday night. Vine Street and Reading Road, some wonderful fruits, vegetables, entertainment there. So just things to promote in our community. Thank you, Chris.
With that, if there's no other business, this meeting's adjourned.